I bought all of the most comfortable new shoes on the market to find out if they're actually any good. First up, we have the New Balance 1906A Tech Explosion. Now this new version of the model dropped July 24th for £160 here in the UK or $170 in the US. It's hard to look at this sneaker and not think of the New Balance 2002 protection pack. That included multiple different colorways of a very distinct look that this now embodies. So they've got the exact same kind of distressed look that those 2002 Rs had, but this time instead of soft suede, you're now getting this metallic synthetic material. And honestly, it fits this aesthetic super nicely. You've got multiple extended panels that even overlap onto the midsole. Jagged raw cuts of material all around, exposed stitching, extended straps from the logo, and it all sits on top of this very nice sail mesh material. Now the laces have also been altered in a very interesting way. It now has this kind of bobbly effect or something very similar to what we saw on the ALD 1906R a couple years ago. It creates this wavy effect that again really plays into the design. Apart from the pretty wild and different upper, the base of the shoe is still pretty much exactly the same as the regular 1906. You've got the exact same cushioning underneath your feet, which has a bunch of different names that New Balance is calling their cushioning technology. So yes, the price bump on this sneaker is definitely not in the cushioning or the tech explosion that this sneaker is called. It's just in the design department. But nothing takes away from the fact that this is still one of the most comfortable shoes that you can buy. They feel soft and squishy underneath your feet, and for me personally, the 1906 and the 2002R are my go-tos for like daily sneakers, especially if I know I'm going to be on my feet for an extended period of time. I took my 2002Rs with me on my trip to New York, where I was consistently putting in 20 to 25,000 steps every single day. I was training in them, and I am so thankful I brought that specific shoe. And yes, the 1906 has the exact same midsole as the 2002, so if you've tried that model, you know what to expect. Now the price point on these is a little bit of a sticking point for me. Do any of the changes justify a $20 price bump? I personally don't think so. But if you like the look of them, which I personally do, then it's a really nice and unique option to go for. Overall, for comfort, I'm gonna give these an 8 out of 10. Now next up, we have a pair of sneakers that I feel like was created specifically for the SpongeBob meme.
It's just an ordinary crabby.
It's the latest pair of the Salehe Bembury Crocs called the Saru Clog. Now they retail for £70 or $75 out in the US. And when I first saw these online, I pretty much wrote them off. They really looked like a lazy attempt to sell a pair of Crocs that capitalizes on the Salehe Bembury hype, but it's nothing too different. And to be honest, they pretty much are just a combination of a regular pair of Crocs on the top and then a Salehe Bembury pair on the bottom. However, that's not all they did, which was actually a pleasant surprise. So first of all, one thing I always found incredibly frustrating when it comes to any pair of Crocs is the size. It is all over the place, and it's even worse when it comes to this Salehe Bembury collab. I've bought countless pairs thinking I'm going to get the right size, only to find out it is too big or too small. But I do think that I finally have a pretty solid answer to the sizing issue. With regular Crocs, I go a full size down. That seems to fit me perfectly. But with the Salehe Bembury collab, I go 2 sizes down, which is pretty insane. But with this new pair, somehow they decided to go with the classic Croc sizing, so I went a full size down and they fit perfectly. So the biggest changes that they've made to this is obviously getting rid of the strap on the back, which I mean is kind of a classic Crocs feature, but they've also beefed up the footbed of these things. You have a taller stack of this Crocs foam when you're walking around. So having these on foot, it feels a little bit more contoured to your feet and not so flat like some of the other versions. They do actually feel more comfortable than both the regular Crocs and the Salehe Bemburys. The only issue is that now that they've got rid of the strap, they do kind of easily slide off. So if you're walking around, you will kind of catch yourself using your toes to keep these things on. Now I'm also not the biggest fan of this colorway. Just solid blue feels a little bit childish, but then again, I'd rather take this one than the all over yellow pair, which is the only 2 available. Crocs really does know who they are and what kind of shoes they make, and even in the product details on their website, one of the technical things that they added to the description of this pair pair of shoes is that they are fun to wear. Overall, it's a surprising upgrade in comfort compared to the regular Crocs and the Salehe Bemburys, and if I would rate both of those 8 out of 10 in terms of comfort, I'd probably give these an 8.5. Next up is a sneaker that has been so heavily recommended, the Adidas Adistar 3. Let me put it this way, this is now the most comfortable shoe I have ever tried from Adidas and one of the most comfortable shoes you can buy. It is right up there with the Nike Invincible Run 3, the New Balance 1080 V13, the On Cloud Surfer, and even the Pegasus 41, all for the pretty reasonable price of £120 here in the UK or $130 in the US. Now, I personally haven't tried the previous versions of the Adistar, the 2.0 or the 1.0. I've only tried the Adistar Cushion, which I love, but it's nothing like this shoe. But from what I've read, this 3.0 version is significantly lighter, more cushioned, and just overall a significant improvement. It's got what Adidas is calling the Repetitor foam in the midsole, which I've never heard of it before, but it blows Adidas Boost out of the water in terms of softness. Another massive plus to contribute to the overall comfort of these is the ankle cushioning. You've got a significant amount of padding around here, which oftentimes with running shoes, they make this ankle area significantly thinner to trim some weight off. They feel pretty well made considering the price point. They don't feel cheap at all. And honestly, I like the look of them. I like the design. I think it's a cool look. I probably wouldn't go for this colorway, even though I did. It was just the only one that was available in my size. Overall, it's a great everyday pair of shoes that is extremely comfortable. It might not be the best running shoe unless you really do like the feeling of ultra softness underneath your feet. But if I did my top 10 most comfortable sneakers of 2024 video again, these would easily break into the top 5. Maybe even higher. So I'm giving these a very cozy 9.2 out of 10 in terms of comfort. I saved the most interesting for last. It's the incredibly wild Autrion 3D printed slide. And guys, these are pretty mind-blowing. So to set a baseline, you guys know that in my opinion, the gold standard for the most comfortable slides out there is the Yeezy slide. I have tested out so many different slides to try and see if there's anything more comfortable, but nothing really compared to the soft squishy foam that the Yeezy slides have. But after walking around in these things for a while, I went to put my Yeezy slides back on and they felt a lot firmer. Like I thought to myself, have I just put on a brand new pair that is still firm and hasn't broken in yet? But no, it's just the incredible contrast between how soft these things are versus anything else. So these released on July the 20th through Autrion's website, which is a very small brand mainly focused on 3D printed footwear. Now they do retail for £95 or $120, which immediately puts them in the more premium category, which is very expensive for a pair of slides. But at the same time, with the amount of research and tech in these, I'm kind of not surprised. They're designed and made in the USA with a very soft TPE material. They're made using a 3D printing method called SLA or stereolithography. Now SLA 3D printing in particular is pretty different to what most of us have seen, where it's like a machine putting out some kind of material on a platform. It uses a light source to cure liquid resin into 3-dimensional objects. Now it's a very similar process to what Adidas uses with their 4D cushioned midsole, but thankfully these are way softer than what Adidas made. Now the lattice structure on the footbed is really interesting because it allows for this material to be so soft but also distributes the pressure pretty well throughout the entire thing. Now it also gives them the ability to custom make each size to provide the best support and comfort for each sized foot. So the insole pattern that you're going to get varies slightly based on what size slide you have. So what do they feel like on foot? And are these the most comfortable slides on the planet? Well, they're not perfect. So let's start with the fit. They do fit true to size. They fit pretty accurately. Because this footbed is so incredibly soft, it does tend to bottom out a little bit. And what I mean by that is if I can squish the top of the footbed with the bottom of the outsole together with my fingers, my full body weight does the same a lot quicker. So I do feel like they could have benefited a little bit by making this just slightly thicker, and that way you wouldn't feel the ground as much. However, when I'm actually walking around and not just standing in one place with all of my body weight pressed down on one specific point of this insole, it does distribute quite nicely and you do have this crazy cloud-like effect when you're walking around. Now, another point that I definitely have to point out is because this insole has basically all of these little holes in it from the lattice structure, wearing them without socks feels a little bit weird, and I can imagine if you're going barefoot in these things over, like you're walking walking around for an extended period of time, you're definitely gonna feel those holes and it might even become uncomfortable. I think the closest comparison to this pair of slides is the A6 ActiBreeze 3D. Those were pretty flawed in multiple different areas, one of the main ones being the sizing. You could only get small, medium, and large, which often left most people getting their wrong size. However, I haven't personally tried those ones, but from what I can tell, that would be the closest comparison to how these things feel on foot. So is it the most comfortable? Well, if I would put Yeezy slides as a 10 at the benchmark, I'd probably rate these a solid 9. But what are the most comfortable shoes that you've picked up recently? And if you want to check out another video, click that one right over there.